And joining us now is Asher Intrater. He's the director of Revive Israel Ministries and the pastor of two congregations, one in Jerusalem and one in Tel Aviv. He's also the author of numerous books about Israel and its role in history. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Evan.
First off, why is anti-Semitism so rampant throughout history?
Well, the issue of anti-Semitism is actually a very deep subject spiritually. It has to do with a similar spirit to hating Jesus. Because after all, Jesus is Jewish, and the Jewish people are the sons of Abraham. God has a covenant promise to preserve our people, and therefore the very fact of our existence is a proof of the Bible. So the spiritual forces that are against the Bible and against God and even against Jesus want to destroy that. There's a difference between anti-Semitism in the world, say that you might find in Europe or in radical Islam. But there has also been a type of anti-Semitism within the church. And there's different aspects of that. There's one aspect that's even a bit of jealousy. We're saying that Jesus, the Son of God, we're all to worship him, and yet he's also a Jew on the human side. On the spiritual side, on the other way, there's a hatred against God's covenant. There are promises in the Bible that for Jesus to return and set up his kingdom upon the earth, there must be Jewish people in Israel, in Jerusalem, inviting him to come back. So everything that would be against the return of Jesus is also against the return of the Jewish people to the land and faith in Jesus among the Jewish people there.
Wow, so that begs the question, is that why Israel is under attack right now on so many different fronts?
Well, I do believe there is a spiritual root to all those attacks. If you look today in Israel, surrounding the nation, on the south and west side, you have Hamas, which in Gaza, which is not just Gaza, it's really funded by Iran and Qatar and supported by Turkey. In the north, you have Hezbollah in Lebanon. You have Al-Qaeda forces now coming through Syria to the Israeli border, and the ISIS forces coming out of Iraq toward Jordan, toward Israel. So you see the focus of international Islamic extremism and jihad focused on this nation.
Why is it so important for Christians to stand with Israel and the Jewish people?
Well, I think that goes to a very deep question about what does it mean to be a Christian. To be a Christian, you are believing in Jesus. His Hebrew name is Yeshua. He's the son of David. He is not only the head of the church, he is also the king of Israel. And we believe by the very fact when someone becomes a believer in Jesus, he becomes spiritually part of the greater household of Israel, of the spiritual sons of Abraham, loyalty to David. I don't think that you can actually really be a believer in Jesus without feeling spiritually attached to this nation, because the Messiah is the King, the Christ. He is connected with Israel. And so there is a spiritual link between all Christians and the nation of Israel. One thing that's very interesting that we've noticed over the last years, a historic change in the attitude of the Jewish people within Israel. Instead of looking at Christians around the world as their enemies, for the first time they're saying our only friends in the world are evangelical Christians. They don't even really know what that means as evangelical Christians, but they see the nations of the world and the United Nations and Islamic Jihad turning against them. And our people say, but we have friends. And there's a new union and cooperation between the nation of Israel and evangelical Christians around the world that I think is very biblical and very covenantal, according to as we understand our faith.
Your insight is both an inspiration and reminder for us of who is in control. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.